right. So, look, you are synonymous with style. You've been dubbed one of India's most stylish filmmakers. Would you agree?
I really don't know, in the sense I was always aspiring to style. I was always trying to be stylish.
Well, I can say that style is omnipresent in your work, in your films, whether it's Gangs of Wasseypur, even though it's about the underworld, or whether it's The Lovely Masaan. It is just, they're all style, infused with style. So how do you really bring style, or how do you really incorporate style to your work, to your stories?
No, it's really like, you don't realize it, that when you become a kind of a style statement, when you become fashionable.
Yes.
Like for me, I have always felt a lack of style when I was growing up. Like,
Maybe that's what made you unique.
Yeah, and in the sense that, always growing up wearing like just that one Bata shoe, white canvas shoe. And I thought the style came from shoes. So I got a shoe fetish later on in life. And then you think style probably comes from these jackets and suits and things. And then you realize style comes from within you.
Yes,
and
absolutely. Well said.
It always comes from when somebody else, comes and tells you that you're so cool. And you're like, acha. And you start looking at your dress, and it's not really about your dress.
Well, as an aspiring actor, I can tell you that you're an extremely stylish filmmaker. Extremely.
Thank
and
you
an
so
extremely
much,
stylish human being. Ladies and gentlemen, Anurag Kashyap.
Thank you so much.
Sir, I'm feeling very humbled in your presence. What a true honor, actually, to be on stage with you.
Thank you.
Really, it is a pleasure. Thank you for joining us today. I was reading somewhere that you have talked about how chess is a way of life. It's a passion, it's a way of life. You have traveled the globe playing chess and made us extremely proud. So first off, can we please have a round of applause for Vishwanathan Anand?
Thanks very much.
So, what does good taste mean to you?
I think it comes down to the persona you want to convey. It can mean a lot of things. Principally applied to my chess, I think style, good taste, all comes in the way you deal with others. You deal with the fans, you deal with the tournament, you deal with your opponents. If you give them respect, you consider that what they're going to do is very difficult for you to overcome and all that, then you're able to put in the maximum effort. And if you feel good in the morning, if you have done the right things, then you carry that through the day, and it helps you get through the difficult moments. So even if you want to peak at some point during the day, during the game, it starts much earlier. And for me, that's what I try to convey.
Thank you so much. That was very, very eloquently said, I must say.
Thank you.
Real class and true style comes from within and permeates in
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to welcome each and every one of you at the 11th edition of the Blenders Pride Fashion Tour, this being the preview. I was standing on the same stage last year when we spoke to you about how, after 9 years of doing only fashion, we graduated to style. The idea was to open up the fashion space and move to style with the introduction of music, style blenders, and so on and so forth. This year, we've tried to evolve that a little bit further by delving a lot deeper into what style is all about and what makes or what defines a person's style. And various things can define people's style. It could be your experiences in dealing with people. It could be the journey that you take. It could be a place that you visited. You could feel inspired from a piece of art or installation that you would have seen. So the idea this year is to delve deeper into that journey and create collaborations with people from various walks of life, which will be fashion, music, style blenders, all of that coming together to create what should hopefully be good taste, because good taste always stays with you. I shan't take very long. At this point in time, let me invite on stage somebody who has good taste and somebody who's considered to be the most fashionable editor in the world of journalism. And without further ado, let me welcome on stage Mr. Shea Kurian.
Very brief about taste because it's an issue that's quite close to my heart. And in fact, it's something that I ponder over a lot because I think it really gives you an opportunity to express yourself, to show the world who you are. And I think that it's something that sometimes is considered a little bit elitist. I don't agree. I think it's something that you can acquire over time. I think it's about really doing your homework, studying, being influenced by people, seeing great people, and sort of incorporating the best. There are three people I'd like to who have, in some sense, influenced me. Number one is, it's not someone I know. There was a movie that I was watching a few years ago. It's a documentary by a guy called Jamie Johnson. He's maybe 23, 24-year-old. He's the heir to the Johnson & Johnson empire. So he made a documentary called Born Rich. And that is basically a documentary about all these kids who were born with immense fortunes and what it was like growing up in their world. And so Jamie himself, very privileged, goes and interviews a whole bunch of people like Ivanka Trump, Mike Bloomberg's daughter, et cetera, and then they all talk about this sort of very privileged position that they're in and what that really means to them. Almost a position where money is, in a way, irrelevant. And in this segment, he interviews this guy called Carlo von Zichl, who is this Italian count. They've had money since the 16th century, says Carlo. So the whole concept of money is very, very different for someone who's had it for 500 years. And they ask him, how do you define your taste? And he says, very, very interestingly, he says, the pleasure of spending sort of extinguishes itself very quickly. So you go out and buy a really fancy sports car, you feel good about it for about maybe a week, 10 days, and then it sort of gets normal. It's very, very normal. And I think a lot of people who exist in that level of wealth will sort of understand that sentiment. It just sort of becomes the new normal. So how does he derive a sense of benefit from his wealth? He talks about going and stitching himself a bespoke suit with his tailor. And he says that while, yes, the suit is very, very expensive and it's not off the rack, the whole process around it, where he's engaging with this tailor, he talks about busting his tailor's balls and sort of really coming up with something which is customized and made especially for him. The process around that is actually what gives the whole experience meaning. It's not just the fact that he was able to spend the money, but the fact that he was able to create something and be part of the whole creative process around creating something that was unique for him. Talent to make their shows better. Who are some of the favorite people that you like to work with?
the designers here. I love them. And all of the designers who are not in the industry. We must
Yeah.
love everyone.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the process of choosing partners for a collaboration? People who have your aesthetic, or is it other reasons? How do you decide?
I think in many cases, the choice is made for us because I think we tend to gravitate towards people or clients who understand what we are doing, and I think the clients also represent those values. So it's usually been, our collaborations have been, I think, extremely sort of enjoyable that way.
But is there someone or some aesthetic you specifically choose, or are there things that you avoid?
I think we're always looking for people who are trying to sort of articulate a kind of distinct design philosophy that is a combination of both the complex and the minimal, that draws opposites together, that I think asks questions, and I think there's a sort of narrative in what we do. So I think it's quite interesting that way.
What about you, Rakesh? What do you think?
I agree. I think it's got to do with just understanding the sensibilities that work very well both ways, and that's how it actually works quite well.
Anju, what about, you've done a very interesting film collaboration right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that and working with Mr. Bhansali, Ranveer, who is crazy?
Well, I think collaborating with Ranveer's energy is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, since I work with the weavers who are reviving the techniques of 100-year-old textiles, and this Bajirao movie was also telling the story of the 18th century. So this was a beautiful collaboration with the Bhansali's visions, creative vision coming in picture, and the weavers' simplistic knowledge, unadulterated aesthetics, and all the sets people, the stage sets, the music, the performances, the acting, the script, the whole storytelling exercise of the movie. So this was a very beautiful collaboration with the weavers and the movie makers and me in between. So it was an awesome experience.
How is it working with people who have a very strong point of view on what a certain aesthetic needs to be? How do you manage that negotiation? Because it is a collaboration. I know Bhansali for sure. Ranveer is also very, very particular. He may appear flippant, but he's not. He's very studied, I believe. And then you have your own point of view, obviously, as well. So how do you negotiate that?
I think it is a little intuitive for me because when I understand the need of the story and the scene which is going to be portrayed, so it is like completely absorbing the whole brief of the director and then allowing your own self to make it come alive.
Rohit?
Hi.
Hi. What is it like working with Rahul?
Oh my God, it's amazing actually. We sometimes wonder how it is for designers who work alone. For us, we are our worst critics. We love working together. Our sensibilities are completely similar, and we argue on a lot of points, but we eventually decide on a particular thing which we feel is the best. But I was telling you about another story which was about collaboration, is that there was like 2 years back, the Dutch government, they asked Manish Arora and us to collaborate with 2 designers from Australia, from Amsterdam, and they were printmakers, they were print designers, and we did a fab show with them in Holland and in Amsterdam and in Delhi, and it was really well accepted. And I think designers can also collaborate, and can do a great job, because we looked at it in a different way, in the way of our embellishments. We represented their prints in our own field, and I think it was really, really well accepted. And it was a great experience doing it.
Fantastic. What about you, Rahul? How is it working with?
Well, firstly, yeah, it's been fun working with Rohit, and it's a lot of fights and lots of things which we agree upon. We sometimes wear the similar clothes to work, and that's how similar we are. And I really can't think, I don't know how everybody does it alone. We both share our work. Sometimes we do menswear, sometimes we do women's wear. But yeah, it's been a great journey. And of course, collaborations is something we get inspired from architecture. Our work is mostly from linear structures. We are inspired by Frank Gehry, from the museums, from art. So it's always taking inspiration from our travel, or we love art, but mostly it's art and travel. It's been a great journey.
Fantastic. JJ, a lesser known side of you is a lot of interesting portraiture, fashion photography, etc. Can you tell us a little bit about that side of your personality?
That's actually not me, it's my alter ego at play. And
you collaborate with yourself.
That kind of really works beautifully, because there's one side which is hardcore fashion and now interiors.
Yeah.
And the other side is little walks in the park with art, with photography. Works beautifully, no commercial pressures, no trends to follow, no bodies to look at whether it works or doesn't work. And I think it's literally like an inner cry of freedom, and it works splendidly for me.
Great. Saba, you've done so many interesting collaborations. My question is, do you think creative people have any boundaries?
Well, in an ideal world, they shouldn't, but of course we do. I think especially when you're doing collaborations with brands, there's so many things that you have to keep in mind, and it's just not your vision that you have to be selfish about. It's everyone's vision together, and you have to kind of put it all together, mix it up, and then create the final product. And I think the fact that when you do collaborate, you do have some boundaries, I think that's the bigger challenge, and that's the challenge that I think every designer likes to take up, and that's what keeps the creative juices flowing. So I think boundaries are great, but once in a while, not all the time.
Okay, great. Neeta, can you tell us a little bit about the people who have influenced you to be who you are?
Get your question.
The people who have influenced you to be who you are.
Predominantly, I think when I entered into the industry, it was a space for me which I just took up by chance. And I studied fashion and always looked at films as something I aspired to do, but didn't know how to get there. When I did films, everything was trial and error. And I think the most important person who influenced me was Sridevi. I think she's an institute in herself. Her knowledge for colors, her knowledge for the cuts that could look good, and visualizing an overall style to that outfit was something that came naturally to her. And I think over the years that I worked with her for some 14 years, I learned a lot from her.
Nidhi, what about your influences or people who have shaped you?
My earliest influence that I can think of is of my childhood. My mother had a store, and I was surrounded by women discussing colors, clothes, fabrics, and I was good in drawing, and I earned my first pocket money drawing khakas for my mother, and I was thrilled that, my God, I got 50 rupees. Oh, wow. And I used to buy threads for her. I used to fool around with the embroidery materials. So I owe a lot for that kind of setup, to grow up in that kind of a setting. That it's truly like internalized, I think.
What about you, Pankaj?
I think like charity collaboration has to begin at home. So we're lucky to be partners in crime. We collaborate on ideas together, and boringly enough, we don't fight very much. We agree on most ideas, which can be a bit tough, but we like that. We like the fact that we like similar things, and we have similar taste, and it probably helps the decision-making process. I think like Rohit and Rahul said, very fortunate to be working as a duo, and hats off to people who do it as single designers. Full credit to them. But I think collaborations are the need of the hour, and it's really the key word for the future. I actually never thought of the idea, but little Shilpa, I mean, can I make this offer to you right now? Would you be willing to collaborate with us for the next show?
Good, yeah.
All right, so work in process.
Done.
Thank you.
Rahul, congratulations. You have a show in Paris in the next few weeks. I'm sure you're excited and stressed at the same time. Big show after Comme des Garçons, great placement. Congratulations for that. International Bullmark Prize. Lots of interesting things going on. I'd like to talk about collaboration with your workers, because reverse migration is something that you've been quite passionate about, and I think the people who put together all the garments that you create are equally collaborators, if not more.
Today only in the morning, I got a message from my wife, and when I landed from flight, it's a WhatsApp message which has a quote by Ratan Tata, where he says that if you want to walk fast, walk alone. If you want to walk far, walk together. So something like that was so important altogether. Looking at how we all work as a team, ultimately it's a teamwork. We have got obviously this prize, Woolmark Prize, or whatever we are showcasing at Paris Fashion Week, is the strength of India which comes from villages of India. How we all are, I'm sure most of us in Design Factory, we are working with weavers, we are working with everything. But one of very important thing which we started with Woolmark Prize when we were making those clothes is from slums of Dharavi and slums of Gandhinagar and all that. We got some people, around 100 people, go back to the village, and where we are able to create all the handwork embroidery which is not dependent on power supply electricity. They create entire work for us, and we are able to do quite a good job in terms of supplies all across the globe, and very happy. And I think my Paris Fashion Week, which is on 3rd, is going to be again a reflection of the amazing potential what villages of our country they have got to offer to us.
And what you were able to do is actually move people from quite difficult conditions in the city where they were forced to work back to their villages and give them a much better quality of life by supporting them that way, right?
I really feel that's what something, if you look at cities, they are very overcrowded today. And that's an unfortunate part also, when 70% of entire GDP, entire earning of India is spent on 30% people who are living in cities. But rest of 70%, how it can go back to village, how we can, again, it goes back to one of my late faculty. I was today also in the morning talking about that, Professor M.P. Ranjan. During NID days, he taught us about not just about designing a product, but probably designing a system, which involves each and every one, which is a participatory exercise. And as I say, rather than designing a product just for consumption, how can we focus on creating a system, or designing a system which can improve participation or collaboration? I think that's what the philosophy of good design is.
Great.
Thank you.
Anand, everybody knows chess is a set. Is it that, or do you have a team and a back end who is critical so that you can do what you do? Just take us through that process.
Yes, it's actually been quite interesting seeing how designers collaborate, because it's very similar in chess. In chess, there's too much material for you to handle yourself. So invariably, you need people who will share the workload with you. If you're going to work with a team, so typically for a World Championship match, I'll have a team of 3 or 4 trainers, and we'll be working 9-hour days for a couple of months, to get all the material ready. And the role of the team is the following. One is simply the sheer workload. So I can do everything, but I don't have that much time. If you spread the work around, it's nice. Second is to give interesting perspectives. Each team member might have noticed something that you hadn't noticed, and they can bring this to your attention. A common misconception is that if you're stronger than them, then what can you learn from them? But I might be stronger than them in over-the-board play. But again, it's a very, very specific skill. But they may have very, very interesting insights. And it comes from their way of thinking. from being different people. Your style of play is so unique to you that you'll miss everything that falls outside that circle. And so it's very useful to collaborate. And finally, I think the most important quality of a team is to understand how you feel and to create a very comfortable atmosphere for you. So you may want to work with, you will generally want to work with people with whom you get along well, who give you positive feelings. Because if you feel positive and you can carry that feeling into the match, into your games, even into the training, if you bond well, then all that will help you. Your work will be more productive if you all feel good together. So I work a lot with my trainers, my team, and if you don't learn the skill of how to work with the team properly, I'll give you two examples of what that is. The first thing is when you work with a team, you must learn to suppress your initial desire to say something. So if you immediately say, well, I feel this is the strongest move, then this typical thing happens, that when they disagree with you, you start becoming defensive about your move. So you got to hold that back. So you have to be open to these different viewpoints when people are trying to tell you something. The second and more important skill is trust. Very often a trainer of mine will tell me something maybe 5 minutes before the game. He'll say, in this position, all you need to remember that this move is good. Go and figure it out. Because there isn't time to give the full briefing. So then when I go to the board, I have to trust him. Because I know that he spent 4 hours last night double checking this. And I cannot, even if I don't believe what he says, I will tell myself, okay, he must have checked it. I will try and figure out what it is he saw. And so these are all the aspects of working in a team that are very important for chess.
How do you select the right people?
I pick people with whom I get along. That's the fundamental quality. You may also look for specific chess skills.
Yeah.
So I will look for people who plug specific gaps in my own chess understanding. So there are things I do very well, and there are things I don't do well. And even in the things I do well, there are people who do that better than me. And the things I do badly, there are people who do outstandingly. So you're trying to complement these things. But the most important thing is that they get along with you. And then once you feel that you're good friends, then the knowledge can just go back and forth.
How do you stop yourself from sort of overriding a decision, or ultimately you're the boss. You can take the call, but sometimes maybe you've been proven right in the past, but still you need to keep that ear open. But you feel like you need to do also what you need to do. How do you find that balance?
Well, in chess, there is one fundamental truth, which is that it doesn't matter what the truth is. It only matters what you execute at the board. So even if my second is correct, my trainer is absolutely right. If I don't feel that I can reproduce it at the board, if the calculations are too difficult, if the position doesn't suit my style of play, then I have to reject and I have to say, look, you might be right, but unless I can make this at the board in a way that I feel comfortable with, it's not going to work. And usually my trainers will agree. They'll say, yeah, this doesn't suit your style. We'll drop it. We'll go to the next best thing which will suit your style. And so that is important because in chess is a sport where you get rewarded only for what you do at the board in those 2 hours. It doesn't matter what you do afterwards, before. It doesn't even matter what you think after you made the move. So it's a very specialized thing. So you have to override with what you're comfortable with. And you learn to manage it. You learn to see when it is your ego speaking, and you learn to see when it is genuinely your humble opinion that this is what you're good at and this is what you're not, and you're the best judge of that, so you can impose your will then. But it's important to, like I say, respect and trust your trainers, because then this back and forth becomes much easier.
Perfect. Thank you. Anurag, similar set of questions to you, because I think that's also relevant. But firstly, tell us a little bit about your influences. Obviously, you are very well versed in not only Indian cinema, but world cinema. Who are some of the people you're looking at today, and why?
My influences have been far too many in the sense like I've always been very impressionable, so I get influenced all the time. So, and beginning with, say, for example, as a child when I would see a Guru Dutt film, and one larger turning point was watching Vittorio De Sica at a festival, and then moving on, I discovered Martin Scorsese too late in life, and ever since then he's been a big influence. To all the current filmmakers, like today I see, say, for example, a Neeraj Ghewar, who made Masan, or Chaitanya Tamhane, who made Coat. Then there's also this movie, Tithi, which I saw, a first-time filmmaker from Karnataka, Ram Reddy. I have never seen a film like that in the last 5 to 6 years. And somebody who can make a movie like that in that little a cost, with a non-actor staying in a village with the villagers, and a film that's so hilarious, and it says so much more. So they all influence me. Anybody I'm jealous of, I'm influenced by the same person. So those are my influences. And I feel that, today this morning I was putting up a post, and I realized that since last year, there's an Indian movie that won at Venice, Court. Consistently at all the major film festivals, one Indian film has won. This morning, another Indian film called Angry Indian Goddesses won the People's Choice Award in Toronto. So every single large festival in the world has had one Indian film winning. And that has never happened in that quantity and that level of competition. So for me, I think all these people are going to be the bigger influencers to me and to every other filmmaker.
Do you believe that creative people have any boundaries?
I think our boundaries are my boundaries are where I just stop walking. In the sense that our boundaries are always external. Our boundaries are like, in a sense, I will go out and I'll try and break free and I'll try and do anything. And then tomorrow, everything else that my resources and things don't stop to limit me. When I've exhausted them, becomes my boundary for that moment. Otherwise, I think we are limitless in the sense we can possibly do anything. And we have seen that various filmmakers doing that. In our country, we are constantly expanding our boundaries. Because I think from the point when I came into the industry, we had hardly explored anything. And now we are constantly exploring ourselves. And we are constantly trying to create new things and pushing boundaries and kind of expanding them.
What is the best team you've worked on and why?
I think every time, I've always had a great team. I'm a firm believer in collaboration, since we are talking about collaboration, because I think individually you can be and you can survive, but if you want to really build something, there needs to be collaboration. Because collaboration is very handy. I might make a film, and a lot of people say it's just my film. But I have always believed that as a filmmaker, I'm in a very different zone as compared to others, because when a film works, then the credit goes to the entire team. But when it fails, it is only the director, because only he had the power to say no. And the points that he does not say no is where his failures lie. Things that he did not stand up and say, no, this doesn't work. So as a filmmaker, I'm in a very privileged position of saying yes or no, whereas a whole lot of people are working all the time. I would not know how to constantly work on the exposure of a camera, to know the way I'm imagining and seeing things with my naked eye is being captured or not. I depend on my cameraman. And I have to, like he said, I have to trust him. When he says, it's fine, I need to trust him that it's fine. I can't let my insecurity also bog him down. I need to trust my production designer. When I give them the brief, and I need to be open to them. I need to share it with them. With actors, I have this very strong bond of trust. My actors trust me so much that they would do anything for me, because they have this faith back in me that I would not let them fall. So I can literally ask them to jump from a place and they know nothing will happen to them because there's a trust. I'm saying without those trust and those bonds, we can't really make a film. It might originate from me as an idea, but for it to fortify, for it to become something, I need a team. And I've always handpicked my team. And like I said, it's very important that the team gets along with you. And I always pick up people who I think are better than me. I never try to be the one who's always the best on the set. All my ADs turn out to be better filmmakers. All my team members, they turn out to be better viewers. I can't have yes men around me. So it always works very well.
That's an interesting point about yes men, because very often after you've reached a certain stage, people are incentivized to make you feel like whatever you're doing is correct. But sometimes the stakes get really, really high. And as the stakes get higher, in fact, you get more and more yes men around you. How do you sort of cut through that?
No, I think I've been very lucky compared to a lot of other people because my career began with a series of failures. And I think failure is a much better teacher than anything else. I have learned a lot from people I admire very much what not to do. So I have to figure out as I go along what to do in life. But I've always learned from others what not to do. And I always have learned from failure because it has one primary thing that it has taught me is not to be insecure. I'm saying when you're really thinking to break a boundary, then you must go out and break a boundary. Because unless you don't do that, you won't realize that whether you have achieved something or not. So first you go all out there and then you see that and you learn from it. Because it's a constant journey. I really genuinely feel it's a constant journey. I still feel very jealous of very good filmmakers. And the first thing I do is I seek their friendship. Anybody I'm jealous of, I seek their friendship. And I learn from them. And they're like very young filmmakers that I always surround myself with. And that I think keeps me very alive. And all this I have learned from all my filmmakers that I used to work with earlier. Where, when I came into the industry, people were full of selves. And they would not, everything was about, it's my film. And it never really becomes a collaborative thing. A lot of filmmakers would make their films through someone else. So I've learned from all that. And I'm still learning. I still make mistakes.
Great. Thank you. Gaurav, musician, the only musician over here. Tell us a little bit about how you're putting together the Blenders Pride fashion tour and the sensibility that you're weaving in, given this theme. Who are the kinds of people you're bringing in and why?
Well, I get to do this every year. So every year I try and...
Discussion, I haven't moved an inch from this corner over here. Thank you so much, Che. Thank you so much, designers, collaborators, style blenders.
ब्लेंडर्स प्राइड का जो पूरा थीम है, जो ब्लेंडर्स प्राइड फैशन टूर हो रहा है, जो स्टाइल जो है आपके अंदर से आती है, और वो मेरा बहुत सख्त तरीके से मानता भी हूँ, क्योंकि बहुत समय से मैंने भी देखा है कि हम लोग हमेशा जो है किसी और की नकल करने की कोशिश करते रहते हैं, कुछ और बनने की कोशिश करते रहते हैं, और हमें समझ नहीं आता क्या गलत हो रहा है। तो एक दिन पता चलता है कि आपके अंदर जो है वही है जो दिखता है, वही है जो लोगों को पसंद है। तो और वो कहीं ना कहीं ब्लेंडर्स प्राइड के साथ अच्छे से ब्लेंड होता है, इसलिए उनके साथ जुड़े हम। मैं तो वैसे जनरली अगर आप देखेंगे, रोज मैं जब काम के लिए जाता हूँ तो मैं तो वो वाला आदमी जो शेल्फ में सबसे ऊपर जो पड़ा होता है वो उठा के पहन लेता हूँ टी शर्ट, और नॉर्मली मैं जीन्स पहनता हूँ, जैकेट पहनता हूँ, टी शर्ट पहनता हूँ, आपने देखा है मुझे तो। और मैं बहुत ही शौक है मुझे जूतों का, तो मुझे शौक है जैकेट्स का, तो जब भी शौक पूरा करने का मौका मिलता है पूरा करता हूँ। अच्छा है, मैं तो पहले बहुत खुश हूँ कि ब्लेंडर्स प्राइड के लिए तरह के आई मेट विश्वनाथन आनंद जैसे दिग्गज से मुलाकात हुई, ऐसे आदमी से जिसे कभी ऐसी हस्ती जिनसे कभी आप मिल नहीं सकते हो, और इतने सारे डिज़ाइनर से मिले, और यहाँ पे आके अच्छा लगा, बिकॉज कहीं भी कोई चीज़ हावी नहीं थी आपके ऊपर, और आपके बारे में थी, और आपके अंदर के स्टाइल के बारे में थी, आपके पर्सनालिटी के बारे में थी, तो अच्छा लगा मुझे। मैं तो अपने कपड़े डिज़ाइनर्स ऐसे नहीं होते कि एक पूरा डिज़ाइन आप जो किसी आप अपना डिज़ाइन खुद बनाते हो, दूसरों के सबसे कुछ ना कुछ लेके, तो मेरा तो हमेशा ऐसा फिल्टर रहता है कि आपने सबसे कुछ ना कुछ लिया और जो बनाया वो आपका अपना खुद का कॉम्बिनेशन। मैंने पहली बार इतने एक साथ देखे। मैं किसी इंडिविजुअल डिज़ाइनर को तो ऐसे नहीं देखता, मैं तो डिज़ाइनर्स काफ़ी पसंद है, बहुत सारे पसंद है, और उनसे मैं अलग अलग लोगों से लेकर के जो है अपना खुद का मिक्स एंड मैच करता हूँ। मुझे अच्छा लगता है, मेरे को जो करने का मन है, जो मैं करना चाहता हूँ मैं लाइफ में, वो कर रहा हूँ, वो हमेशा अच्छा लग रहा है और बहुत अच्छा लगता है।
ब्लेंडर्स प्राइड की बात करना चाहेंगे, क्या खास रहेगा और किस तरह के कॉस्ट्यूम देखने मिलेंगे आपकी तरफ से, किस तरह से डिज़ाइन किए हुए हैं?
ब्लेंडर्स प्राइड के साथ में ये मेरी 11वीं साल है, और बहुत ही अच्छा लगता है, कोलैबोरेशन बहुत ही उम्दा तरीके से होता है, और ब्लेंडर्स प्राइड की हमेशा खासियत ये रहती है कि ग्लैमर के साथ लाइफस्टाइल क्वोशेंट, और जो कलेक्शन प्रोजेक्ट करने को मिलता है वो बहुत ही ग्लैमरस कलेक्शन होता है, और बहुत सारी सिटीज़ में जाते हैं और बहुत सारी सिटीज़ में शोकेस होते हैं कपड़े, तो एक बहुत ही इमेंस एक्सपोजर पैन इंडिया मिलता है। और मेरे ख्याल से इस बार की जो मेरी कलेक्शन है वो इट्स प्रेडोमिनेंटली विद ब्लैक एंड वाइट, एंड इट इज़ अबाउट यू विच इज़ एमिंग एट द वुमन हु इज़ a part of a semicircle to the entire circle of life, without whom the circle of life is not complete. और इसको लेके जो कलेक्शन मैंने बनाई है वो उस वुमन पे आधारित है जो काम करती है, जो हाउसवाइफ है, और जो हर एक चीज़ को एक बैलेंस देने की कोशिश करती है, उस पर ये कलेक्शन आधारित है।
जैसे आपने बताया कि श्रीदेवी से आप काफ़ी ज़्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस्ड है, तो क्या श्रीदेवी आपकी आइडल भी है कलर्स एंड फैशन के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से? डेफिनेटली शी इज़ माई आइडल, एंड उनसे मैंने बहुत ही सीखा है, क्योंकि जब मैं इंडस्ट्री में आई तो मेरी पहली ही क्लाइंट थी श्रीदेवी, और एज अ डिज़ाइन स्टूडेंट बहुत ही मुझे उनसे जानकारी मिली।